Greetings. This video demonstrates how to use Microsoft Visio as published on the Mount San Jacinto College remote desktop connection application called apps.msjc.edu. When you go to apps.msjc.edu, you are presented with a logon screen. In the username and password box provided, you would put the username, which would be msjc / and the Blackboard username provided to you by the college. In this case, I'll put mine in. You then provide the password. The password is identical to your Blackboard password that you used to log on to my.msjc.edu with. Once you've provided your credentials, you can click the Sign In option. If it asks you to store the password, it's recommended to say not for this site if you're using, Now, very important, you have to use the Internet Explorer browser for apps.msjc.edu to work. Internet Explorer is required because apps.msjc uses an ActiveX control that can only function in Internet Explorer, and because of that, it'll only function on a Windows machine. Once you've logged on to apps.msjc, you can get access to all of the applications that we provide to you at no cost that you can use on our remote servers. There are many applications here. You can see them all listed. I recommend that for doing the assignments for this class that you use the remote desktop application down here. It should be the very last one listed in the list. It should be the very last icon in the list of icons that you see here. To run this, you single click on the remote desktop icon. Do not double click on it, just single click it. You should get a connect window that pops up. Click connect, and you'll get a credentials box that pops up. When the credential box comes up, it's important to type the following in. You type msjc / and then your Blackboard username, and then followed by your Blackboard password. Click OK. The first time this connects, it may take a while, so be patient with it as it tries to make its connection and connects into the remote servers at the college. As this happens, you will eventually be presented with a desktop. It is important to keep in mind that the desktop that you're going to be presented with looks as if though you are actually connected to the college, because you are. You're logged on to one of the servers of the college and have access to all of the programs that are running on that particular server. I'll show you how that works here momentarily. Eventually, it'll come up with a certificate error. If it does, if you do get that kind of certificate error like this, go ahead and click yes. You may or may not get that error. If you get the error, click yes. There, I've now logged on and I've been presented with the remote desktop for me to run applications on. If you'll notice up at the top, I have a title bar. You can very quickly just minimize this title bar and you can get back to your original desktop. If you want to go back to the server, you simply click on the remote desktop icon now on your task tray, and it'll open back up to the remote desktop. I can now run any applications that are installed on the server. In this particular case, I'm going to show you how to use the tool Microsoft Visio in order to document your home network. I'm going to click on Start, and in here you'll go to All Programs, and you're going to be looking for Microsoft Office, and you will find the program Microsoft Visio. Go ahead and select it, and this will launch Microsoft Visio. We're going to create a network diagram. So you're going to go to File, New, and choose Network. You can choose any one of these types of network diagram, but the one you want is probably the detailed network diagram. It just gives you more icons to choose from. Click Detailed Network Diagram and choose Create over to the right-hand side. Now that I've done so, you are in the Microsoft Visio tool. Right over here to the right is the piece of paper that I'll be drawing on, and over here to the left are all the shapes and icons that I can use to diagram my network. I like to magnify this up so I can see it better, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to magnify my diagram so I can see it, and then I can just use these scroll bars to navigate the page. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, first thing I want to show is I want to demonstrate my connection to the internet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find an icon that looks kind of like the internet. So you'll find that under the network symbols, I think. No, not there. Network locations, maybe? Yeah, network locations. So over the left-hand side under shapes, I'm going to find network locations, and I have this thing called the cloud. So I'm going to click on that, hold on it, and drag the cloud out here, and now I've got a cloud icon. This will represent the internet. I can label this by double-clicking on it and typing internet. Of course, when I do that, it's kind of black, so I may want to click on that and make the text a different color. So I'll choose this, and I'll choose maybe white. And if I wanted to make it bold and the text a little bit bigger, then I could do so. So now I have my internet connection. Now at my house, my internet connection connects to a device that sits here, and that device is my Verizon. I have a Verizon Files connection. And so basically, I'm going to find an icon that represents that. In this case, I'm going to represent it with a firewall, because that's really what it is. Actually, I won't do that. It's a router. So I have a router here, and I'm going to drag that out here. And I want this to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to drag one of the sizing handles out there. And here is my router. So now I'm going to double click on this guy, and I'm going to label it. And I'm going to call this my Verizon router. When I'm done typing, I can just click anywhere, and there you go. If I don't like where that Verizon router is placed, I can click on it, and I can grab this little yellow handle, and I can drag that yellow handle anywhere I want. Do you see that? So I can drag it wherever I want to. Now, I'd like to connect the internet to my Verizon router. So I'm going to click on the internet, and I'm going to see one of these yellow diamonds here. I'm going to drag that yellow diamond and connect it right to the Verizon router. You may have to search around until you find a glue handle. In this case, it's right in the middle of the device. They call that a connection point, and then I can let go. Now, if I wanted to straighten this up a little bit, I can click on my Verizon router, and I can nudge it with the arrow keys on my keypad and move the Verizon router up, or I could just drag it with my mouse. There you go. That's my Verizon router. Now, I connect to this Verizon router with a switch. So I have a switch in my home office, and I'm going to grab that switch, and I'm going to drag that switch out here, and there we go. I'm going to drop it out there. Now, this is my Cisco switch. So I'm going to call it a Cisco switch. Just make sure that in the assignment you label it as a switch. Your Verizon router could also be your switch together, right? So you could have both, and that's fine. The Verizon router and the switch can be the same thing. What I would recommend is just separating them, even though they're in the same device, so that you can understand that it's serving two purposes. It's serving both the router and the switch function. I can now connect these together. Now, connecting these are a little bit more difficult. It's not as easy as the internet one, because the internet one already had connection handles. So what I need to do is I need to find a connector. Now, there may or may not be connectors in here. There is. Do you see over here to the left-hand side under Networks and Peripherals? It may also be under, it's not under Annotations, but you'll find them under several of these. There'll be an icon called Dynamic Connector. So you can grab Dynamic Connector and just drag it out here, and then you can click on the Verizon router and then move it over and click on and hold it on the glue connection point on the switch. And there we go. Now, I want this little line to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to click on the line, and I can choose the line here, and I can make the weight much bigger. Do you see that? So that's easy to make it big. Now, I don't like the fact that the line is on top of the router and the switch. So I'm going to click on that line. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to choose Send to Back. And now the line is behind the devices. So it just looks a little cleaner. Okay. Now I have a couple other things on my network. So in my research, I ran around my house and I found that I also have a wireless access point. So I'm going to go to my network and peripherals, and I find this thing called wireless access point. I'm going to drag it out here and drop it there. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get a dynamic connector, and I'm going to connect the wireless access point to the switch, because that's exactly the way it is. And I'm just going to nudge this guy over to make it kind of line up. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to change the line to be a little bit darker, a little greater weight. And then I'm going to right-click on the line, and I'm going to Send to Back. So now I have my wireless access point. And of course, I'm going to label this too. This is a Cisco wireless access point. Now, I don't like where that text is, so I'm going to click on the wireless access point. I'm going to move that yellow handle and put it up over here. There you go. Pretty fun, huh? So I'm diagramming my network at this point. So I have lots of machines in my home office. I'm not going to diagram them all. I'm just going to show you what you're required to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab things that I have in my network. So one thing I know I have is a computer. So I'm going to go ahead over here. I'm going to click on computers and monitors, and I'm going to choose PC, and I'm going to drag my PC out here. Okay. So if you want a Mac, you can drag your Mac out here too. But here I have my PC, and I want to show that my PC is connected to my switch. So same thing, grab the dynamic connector, connect it to the switch, drag it over, and connect it to the PC. And you can just leave it out there like that. If you want to, you can nudge it up just like I did before, or you can kind of leave them out like this. That's fine too. However you want to do it. In this case, I may want to drag mine down a little bit. Now in this case, I may not want the line to be like that, so you can grab, oh, wow, that was crazy. You can do all sorts of fun things with these lines. You can make them go up first. Like here, I want mine to go up, and I want it to go over, right? Just like that. See that? So and now I want my line to be a little thicker, so I'm going to make my line thicker. There we go. And I don't want it to be in front of my icon, so I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to send it to the back. That way, I have the switch and the computer just like that. Now I'm going to label this. I'm going to double-click on it, and I'm going to label it My Computer. There we go. Great. Now, I also have in my network a couple of laptops, so I'm going to grab my laptop out here. And my laptop connects to this wireless access point. And I'm going to double-click on that and label this as my laptop. Okay. There you go. And my laptop connects. Oh, and I don't want my laptop to be so big. I'm going to go ahead and shrink it down just like that. And my laptop connects to the wireless access point. That's kind of hard to demonstrate, a wireless connection. Sometimes we will use, let me look in here. There might be something we can use. I'll show you in a minute. Let me find it. Maybe it's here. We're looking for something that kind of indicates a wireless connection. They're kind of hard to find. There we are. You can use this. So what I like to use this little lightning bolt thing, right? So I can show that my laptop is connected wirelessly to this access point, right? If I wanted to show that, I could. It's kind of fun. And then of course I can right click and send that to back. There we go. So that shows my laptop is connected to my access point. All right, I may have other devices out on this network. For example, I have a printer, right? So I'm going to drag my printer, and I'm going to label this as my printer. And this is my HP printer. And this HP printer is connected to the network as well. And I'm going to now connect that guy up here as well. So I can just simply grab my dynamic connector, and I'm going to go from the switch to my printer. Now, you may not want it to be like that. You may have to drag your line to kind of line it up a little bit. And then you may want to make it thicker like we've done before. Pretty easy to do. And I may want to click on that line and right click and send to back. All right, there we go. That is my basic network diagram. I'll shrink it down so we can see the whole thing. That's my basic home network. That's the beginning of what I required you to do, is label your devices. You must have a router and a switch. You must show the connections. You must show your devices that are on your network. And you must show how they get out to the internet. So that's basically what you're required to do. I also require you to label them. So we've labeled the devices, but we must also provide their logical addressing. I provided a couple of videos to help you figure out what your logical devices are. This is sometimes a difficult part. So I'm now going to show you how to do a label with an annotation. So here we have an annotation, and I like to use callouts. So we'll use this callout right here. Well, actually, I think I like the... yeah, you can use any one of these labels if you want to. Starting with one of these callouts. Maybe you want to do one of these straight callouts like that. That's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and label these devices. So first I'm going to start with, what is my computer's IP address? And so you can do that. So we'll click on the start to find out my computer's address. I'm going to minimize the remote desktop real quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my start menu, and I'm going to click in my run area, and I'm going to type CMD. And I'm going to run the command ipconfig, ipconfig. And this is going to give me a big printout, and I'm going to scroll back up to the top. And I've got lots of IP addresses on my machine, but the one I'm interested in is up here. And so this shows you my IP version 4 address, which is 172.22.99.90. Right? That's one of them. And then I have another IP address, 192.168.200.200. Now, this is a little complex. The only reason it is because I have a VPN running right now. And so my VPN is connected to another network. So that can be a little confusing. But yours probably won't be that way. And so that's okay. So anyway, you want to get your IP version 4 IP address. You probably only have one. And I want to take that IP address and I want to place it on my diagram. So I'm going to go back to remote desktop. Oh, I've already forgotten what it was. So I just got to remember this. It was 192.168.200.200. So I'm going to go back to remote desktop, and I'm going to grab either a call out if you want to do a call out. But you may want to just grab some text. And in this case, I'm going to grab text, and I'm going to label 192.168.200.200. That is the IP address of my computer, and I'm going to go ahead and put that right here next to my computer. That indicates what and if I want that to be a little bit bigger, I can change the font, right? Just like that. I can make it 10-point font. That's pretty easy to do. And I can move it around wherever I want to. There you go. And I can go do the same thing for my laptop. So I'll grab my font, my text. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Let's say I went and I researched my laptop, and my laptop is 192.168.200.201. That's my laptop. There you go. Now, that's what I require, is for you to label the IP addresses of your computing devices. Now, it may be a little bit more difficult to find out your printer. This could be rather interesting, right? Like, what is the IP address of my printer? Well, sometimes that requires you to go onto the printer's website if you have one. Sometimes you can look at the front console of your printer. It'll tell you the IP address. You just kind of have to figure that out. In my case, I can hold down a button on my printer, and it prints out a config page, and it'll show me the IP address. In this case, my printer's IP address, I happen to know it. And so my printer's IP address is 220. So just be... do the best you can on that. You don't have to be perfect on this. I just want you to get used to the idea that all devices have IP addresses. Finally, if I go back to my command prompt, you'll notice that I have a default gateway. And that default gateway is 192.168.200.1. So basically what that gateway is, that's the way I get out. So that is going to be the Verizon router's address. So I'm going to grab more font out here. and I'm going to label 192.168.200.1. I'm going to make that font a little bit bigger, just like we did before. And that is the IP address of my Verizon router. Do you see that? Oops, I'll delete that. So that is my router's IP address to get out to the internet. Now there's another IP address that's pretty important. This is my internal IP address that my devices in this internal network can talk to. But everybody in the internet doesn't know these addresses. Everybody in the internet knows a different address. So the way to figure that one out is if you open up a web browser and you go to Google, there's a couple of, you can just type in a question, what is my IP address, right? And Google actually tells you your public IP address is, and there's my public IP address, 98, and I'm going to copy that, 98.112.206.52. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my remote desktop, and I'm going to grab my font, my text out here, and I'm going to paste that IP in there like that. And so I'm going to make this, I'm going to remove the italic there, and I'll make it bold. And this is my public IP. So I'm going to drag that over here on this side of the Verizon router, and that's my public internet IP, right? Or maybe that's the one I'm currently using, but you get the idea. So there you go. So I have my public IP, I have my internal private IP, which is this one, and then all my devices have IP addresses. And so to finish this diagram off, I'm going to just highlight everything. I'm going to move it all over just a little bit to center it up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some text, a big text label out here, and I'm going to label this Guy Reams Home Network, right? And I'm going to, actually, I'll put an enter right there, carriage return right there, and I'll make this bold and big, and there you go. That's the Guy Reams diagram. So I'm almost done with the assignment, right? I'm almost done. The last thing you need to know is how to convert this to a PDF so that I can submit it to Blackboard. Well, that's pretty easy. You simply go to that. Once I've got the diagram ready, I want to save this file. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I probably want to save it to my you're going to save it to your My Documents. So the server will land you to a folder called My Documents. You're just going to save it in here. So I'll call this My Home Network. And I'm going to click Save. That saves this as a drawing file in case I need to make edits later. You can also go File, Save As, and I can choose, in the drop-down box here, I can choose PDF. So My Home Network PDF, I'm going to click Save. And it's going to automatically save that as a PDF. And then it'll open the PDF, and there's My Home Network saved as a PDF file. Do you see that? So I'm going to close that now. I can go ahead and close Visio because I'm done. Now the question is, how do I get that up to Blackboard? So one way is to simply go to the Documents directory. So click on the Start button, go to Documents, and find the My Home Network PDF file. There it is. And you can right-click and choose Copy. I can then minimize the remote desktop, and I can find my computer, right? And I can right-click and paste it on my home computer. Now it's pasted here, and now I can upload it like you normally would. Or a even better way to do it is if you're in remote desktop, well, why don't you just open up Internet Explorer, just like this. I'm opening up Internet Explorer within the remote desktop, and then I'm just going to go to my.msjc.edu, and I can just log on to Blackboard. And I can go to my course, and I can upload the file by browsing for my Documents and uploading it straight here from the server. So this isn't very difficult to do. So there you go. That's it. That concludes how to use Microsoft Visio on the apps.msjc.edu interface provided by the college.